Hello Orchid friends, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at my two water culture Phalaenopsis orchids. If you are watching my video for the very first time, my channel is all about orchids, from what orchids I have, how I grow them, my thoughts on certain orchid topics, to what orchids are blooming, etc. So if you want to follow along my orchid hobby adventure, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification. The two Phalaenopsis orchid that you're seeing here are mini Phalaenopsis orchids. They're no IDs that I purchased from Trader Joe's, and about a month and a half ago, I started to see them poking out with their spikes. And since then, I have taken a couple photos every now and then whenever I could remember, and basically try to document and show you some photos. You're going to see some photos later on in the video of each orchid. As you can see here, this particular orchid has a very healthy root system, and so far it has been very easy to take care of in full water culture. It never really had any serious root rot problems, so I will really consider this one a very easy transitioned, well-transitioned Phalaenopsis orchid from regular moss media to full water culture. And this one, I know that other than the roots, I can tell from its leaves that it's also doing really well because the newer leaves are bigger than the previous leaves. This is one of the good indicators that this phal is actually adopting to the method that I'm growing it with, and also is loving the environment and overall growing condition that I'm providing. And the roots are just really absolutely gorgeous. I love staring at this orchid's roots. And you can see here in the video, sorry for the reflection of the cup, but you can see that the spike is just almost, over or poking out to the edge of the cup, but not quite. I will give it a couple more days to grow, and but at some point, if it's still bending or growing in a wrong direction, I may have to somehow help it so that the spike will continue to grow upwards versus circling around inside the cup. And here, that's just a quick shot to show you that new roots can really grow out of existing older roots. So don't cut older roots just because they look older, not as visually pleasant to look at. And for newer orchid growers, they may actually think that roots with darker color, sometimes really, really dark colors, they may think that those roots are dead or not viable. That may not be true. So when you convert your orchids to full water culture, when you're in the process of cleaning the root system, make sure you actually press firmly just to see if the roots are still viable. Don't just assume that the roots are dead or not viable based on its color. So that way you can avoid cutting away potentially viable roots, which will lead to a shock for your orchids, and that may actually set back your orchids. So unless they're obviously dead, otherwise when in doubt, always leave them alone. Coming up, you're going to see a couple of photos of this particular orchid that I have taken prior to making this video. What you're seeing here really is just a shot of the spike. It was still very early on, right? It's still obviously a lot shorter than what I showed you in the video clip. At the time, I just was overly excited, so I took a shot. And here's another picture to show you that the spike is growing and the roots are healthy. At the time, I believe it was during a cold spell. We had really low temperature, so I really kept the water almost to like none in the cup because I really don't want them to quote unquote catch a cold from the cold temperature. And this one is just another angle of this particular orchid. And as you see in the back there, the blue cup, that's the outer cup. I really enjoyed this inner cup, outer cup combination because it really helps me avoid algae issues. And whenever I need to do anything, change water, I can easily do so. If I want to observe roots, I can do so. And this is just how this orchid is would usually look like on my growing shelf. These are 16-ounce cups. If you're having algae issues and you want to try full water culture, this may be another good alternative you can try. Now let's take a look at the second orchid. This one is also no ID, although recently I found another orchid at the grocery store with a tag, and the flower looked exactly like how I remembered for this particular orchid that you're seeing. And the tag says golden leopard. And I think that makes sense because this orchid's flower is yellow in the background but with lots of dots. The dots are not even. Some dots are smaller, some dots are bigger, but those dots were in magenta or dark or lighter purple. So I think it makes sense that the name is golden leopard, but we'll see. We'll see when it blooms. We'll know. Now this is just a shot of the spike that's growing, and this one actually started its spike later than the first one, but this one, the growth speed is much faster than the first one for some reason. This one also has really amazing root system, even though its leaves were a little, some leaf tip were a little messed up, and that was my mistake because sometimes I drop things on them, and that kind of cut them in some way. But overall, I'm really happy that these two are spiking for me. Very soon, we're going to be able to see their blooms. Here are some photos of this particular orchid. I usually keep their water level below 1/3 of their root amount. If I look at the roots, I measured about 1/3 is really the highest water level that I will allow them to have. But again, the inner cup, outer cup combination really works well for me. So if you're having algae problem and you want to give full water culture a try, this really is working for me. So I think this will work for you as well. And the key here is to minimize or even completely eliminate the sunlight that goes through the plastic cup into your water. So that way there's no algae forming inside of your pot. Before we finish the video, I just want to let you know that for those of you who are new to orchid growing and who are probably new to full water culture and want to give full water culture a try, personally, I think full water culture is slightly more advanced than any growing methods that you can use with media. And the reason I say that is you do have to really understand the relationship between orchid roots and the water, as well as the individual orchid quote-unquote personalities and their tendencies, plus their preferences with water, right? Their preferences with water and then their roots relations with water. And you really have to find that perfect balance in order for your orchid to thrive in this growing method. Some orchids have very easygoing personality, so they adopt this full water culture method right away without any root rot. These two are perfect examples, but I've had orchids where the roots would just keep rotting until new roots has grown out. And usually when that happens, that's already well into spring or summertime. And by the way, speaking of seasons, wintertime is really a big no-no for almost everything orchid related, unless it's emergency repot. For example, the roots are completely rotting inside the pot, and you really want to make sure that you don't lose this orchid, because the more you wait, the worse it's gonna get, and by the time spring comes, you may lose the orchid completely already. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please comment down below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to follow along my orchid hobby adventure, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification. I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!